All right, so we're going to talk about proportions today, and the very first thing that we're going to talk through is what is a proportion. So a proportion is two equivalent ratios. We can also write ratios as fractions. So really, proportions are just two equivalent fractions. So we're going to start with a really friendly set of fractions. So let's start with 1/2. That's probably the most friendly one that we can start with. Let's say we want to make a proportion. So we want an equivalent fraction, an equivalent ratio, which just means an equivalent fraction. If you've forgotten how to make equivalent fractions, really all you have to do is whatever you do to the top, you do the same thing to the bottom. So if I multiply 1 times 3, that's going to give me a new numerator of 3. And whatever I did to the top, I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. So these 1/2 equals 3/6. This is a proportion. Basically, those two fractions are equivalent, so that would be a proportional relationship. Same thing could happen with a different number. If we did 1/2 and we wanted to create a different equivalent fraction, let's say this time we wanted to multiply times 5 on the top, and whatever we do to the top, we're going to do to the bottom. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 2 times 5 is 10. So that would be 1/2 equals 5/10. That would be a proportional relationship. Those two fractions would then create a proportion. One of the things that they're going to ask you to do in 7th grade for sure is to check and see if two fractions are proportional. So we just are looking at these two. I don't know about you, but I don't know my 13 times tables by heart. So this is one that I cannot just look at myself and see. But there's two different ways to check this one. So really, one of the ways is just to check the multiplication. So I can see a relationship between 7 and 42. So to get from 7 to 42, I multiplied times 6. So for this to be proportional, it would have to be times 6 down here. So we need to check to see if 13 times 6 is 78. So 6 times 3 is 18. That's going to be 6 plus 7 is 78. So this, if we checked it that direction or that method, whatever we did to the top, we did the same thing to the bottom. So this would be a proportion. There's also another way to check to see if things are proportional. So we call this way cross multiplication. So these two things, if they are proportional, they should make an equation, which means one side of your equation should be equal to the other. So what we do is we like to kind of cross multiply 7 times 78. And I've already plugged that in. 7 times 78 is equal to 546. So that's going to be one side of our equation. And if these are proportional, then the other side should also equal 546. So 7 times 78 was what we did first. Now we're going to cross multiply the other side. 13 times 42. And if you multiply 13 times 42, you get 546. So because these two things create an equation, they create something that is equal, then that means this whole thing is a proportional relationship. This would be a proportion. All right, let's check this last one to see if it's proportional. We're going to use the same skill that we used in the previous problem. Again, there's two ways to do this. One was just to check the multiplication. So 2 times 6 is 12, and I think you can probably already see a little bit of an issue here. 5 times 3 is 15. So because these two things are not the same, these do not make an equivalent fraction, so this is not a proportion. This would not be proportional. We can also use the same method that we used last time. So the last time, basically what we did is we cross multiplied. So let's do that. 2 times 15 is going to give me 30, and I'm going to set it equal to whatever this other cross multiplication is. Well, 5 times 12 is 60. So because 30 does not equal 60, again, this just proves that these are not proportional. Again, just a little recap. Remember, a proportion is just two equivalent ratios. So two fractions that are equal. And in another video, we'll talk about how to find a missing piece. So let's say we were missing this 5 and there was maybe a variable there. We'll talk about how we can find that piece of information in our next video.